We have had 15 different players go down with some sort of injury during the first 2 weeks of the NFL season.
Low-key, this is kind of getting out of hand already.
Which means for a lot of you, you need reinforcements on your fantasy team heading into your next matchup. Not to worry, here are some guys that I like going forward that can help you win your fantasy matchups. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so that you never miss an upload. With that being said, let's get into the guys I think you should add off waivers to help your fantasy football team heading into week 3.
Rush, Prescott, loaded up, going deep, has a man. Jalen Tolbert! Great route. They double CD Lamb with Matthew. It leaves nobody in the deep part of the field, and Tolbert with an A catch. Not Dak's best throw, but he comes back with that.
One of the numerous and the biggest injuries to happen over the weekend is Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco breaking his fibula versus the Bengals. Now, he is set to miss around 6 to 8 weeks, which is a good chunk of the season. And for a lot of you, that's your RB2 gone straight to IR 2 weeks into the season. Now, being that Pacheco is gone, there's not necessarily a plug and play into this role and his workload. There are 3 guys tasked with the load in the backfield now. The first is rookie running back Carson Steele, who we saw getting time along with Samaje Perine, who the Chiefs signed right before the season. Steele will probably get the early down work in this role, so we can probably see Perine on third downs or on obvious passing downs. Nonetheless, those are 2 guys I would go and grab if I needed just replacements for Pacheco. Now, these are not like plug and plays, guys. Like, I'm not starting Carson Steele. I'm not really starting Samaje Perine. At least not yet. I want to see this first week kind of what they go through and how that happens and that workload and everything like that. Now, if I'm in a PPR league, I'm obviously targeting Samaje Perine, but Steele is also worth an ad again, like if you need it. But a guy who I think is really worth an ad is Kareem Hunt, who the Chiefs signed to their practice squad yesterday. Now, obviously, Hunt has spent time with the Chiefs before. He can also catch passes and run in between the tackles. He was obviously the longtime backup behind Nick Chubb in Cleveland. And I think this is a very solid ad. I think Hunt will eat into this kind of workload besides Perine and Steele. Nonetheless, though, I think if Steele and Perine are gone in your league and off waivers, I would go for Hunt, at least until he gets reinstated into waivers. For right now, I'm not starting any of these guys heading into week 3, but I would definitely watch their value and see if their value goes up, the workload goes up, and just carries, and just look at the workload, right? See if that volume goes up or stays the same, or who gets the most of it. That's the guy you want to add. Another injury that popped up over the weekend was Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp, who suffered an ankle injury against the Cardinals. And this one is just heartbreaking, man. For Kupp managers, for people who love football, I love Cooper Kupp. He's one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL. And in week 1, he looks so much like the old Cooper Kupp of past seasons after a rough 2023-2024 season. Now he may be headed to IR with his ankle injury. He's definitely going to miss a good amount of time. And the Rams are already without Puka Nacua. He's already on IR and he's set to miss a good chunk of time with his like weird knee injury. So now Demarcus Robinson becomes the #1 weapon for Matthew Stafford in the Rams passing game. But I definitely think that this Rams offense is going to go through the run game now, being that Kyron Williams is healthy and he's really their best player on offense besides Matthew Stafford right now. But obviously the Rams are going to have to throw the football. They cannot run the ball on every single down. And I fully trust that Sean McVay will make the best out of a bad situation. So essentially every single Rams wide receiver not named Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua is up for grabs right now. I think Demarcus Robinson is worth the ad, and I think he's a flex start this week just to honestly gain his value. But if you really need someone to start right now, he's a start for flex this week. But Demarcus Robinson might be gone in your league. He was getting a little hot last week. He was just so close to being on my waiver wire video, but he was just not there yet. Either way, the guys like Tutu Atwell, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington, even Colby Parkinson at tight end, if you need a tight end, are all worth ads. Look at it as like the Rams wide receiver core is basically all on waivers right now. They're all worth an ad because they all may have value or a role in this new offense essentially. I like Atwell if Robinson is gone, but I also like the rookie Whittington. Jordan Whittington is a guy who had a very solid preseason, and I really liked what I've seen from him so far, obviously in the preseason, a little bit in the regular season as well. Now let's head over to talk about a quarterback that I really am surprised to see playing so well. It's Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, we've had Jordan Love go down already and Tua Tagovailoa, so if you're relying on those two to start and you need a quarterback, go get Derek Carr. He's a high priority ad right now. I mean, Clint Kubiak has had this Saint offense looking phenomenal, and Derek Carr looks like a new man. He's currently the QB2 through the first 2 weeks of the season with 2 huge scoring games. I honestly think week 3 is the tester for me, and if this is really something that we're going to see the Saints put up giant numbers. But hell, they did against one of the best defense in the NFL last week in Dallas, so anything can surprise me right now. If the Saints continue to ride hot with Derek Carr and this hot hot hand of offense, then I definitely think that Carr could be a week-to-week starter. If you need a quarterback, I would stream him right now while he's hot. Now, next up, let's talk some wideouts, and let's talk about a guy who shocked the whole fantasy football community after he had a massive week. That was Quentin Johnson of the LA Chargers. Now, Johnson had 2 touchdowns along with 5 receptions for 59 yards and 6 targets in a huge Chargers win over Carolina. Now, the 2 touchdowns really helped this week, and I'm glad the memes of Johnson not being able to catch will probably go away for now. But if he can get in the end zone on a weekly basis, he could have a shot at being fantasy relevant and worth a flex start. This Chargers offense doesn't really throw the ball a lot. Obviously, they run with J.K. Dobbins, but when they have to throw, they look good. I know Justin Herbert's kind of popped up with an injury with an ankle so far this week, so I'd watch that. But hey, maybe Quentin Johnson could be what we thought Josh Palmer was going to be in this offense for the Chargers. Overall, I think Johnson is definitely worth an add as just depth for right now and just kind of see what his value is and how this offense works out, especially passing-wise. We saw that McConkey have success last week. Quentin Johnson has success this week. So let's just see what happens going into week 3. Now, I talked about a Cowboys wide receiver last week, and I'm doing it again. This time, we're talking about Jalen Tolbert, the third-year man out of South Alabama. Now, Tolbert had a really solid day against the Saints despite the result. He was second in targets with 11 behind CeeDee Lamb, second in receptions behind CeeDee Lamb with 7, and he was second in yards with 94, all equaling a total of 14.2 fantasy points. You know, heading into the year, there was a real conversation about who would be the third option on this team behind CD and Cooks. And a lot of us thought it would be like Jake Ferguson taking that role, being the third option in this passing game. Really, with Michael Gallup gone and him retired now, that kind of felt like the right move because Jake Ferguson was heating up towards the end of the season. However, nonetheless, I was really high on Jalen Tolbert, and I really thought he could take this third option as a third wide receiver in this passing game by storm. He had some pretty big catches in other years, his rookie year and obviously his second year, but nonetheless, they were featuring him in big parts of the offense. Now, this could definitely be because Jalen Tolbert is kind of soaking up those targets that Jake Ferguson kind of left on the table with him being gone. However, I think it's more than that, and I definitely think Jalen Tolbert is worth an add, especially for depth, because I feel like he's going to break out a little bit later in the year. To me, he just seems like a player that is definitely worth it because he can do a lot more than we all think he can. Now, last week, I also talked a lot about RB handcuffs, and I got another one for you guys. It's Braylon Allen of the New York Jets. For me, Allen is a high priority stash handcuff, especially with Breece Hall's workload. Look, Allen had a huge day versus the Titans in the Jets win. He had 8 carries for 41 yards, 3 receptions for 32 yards, 5 targets, and 5.1 yards per carry. Now, that doesn't sound great, right? But he had a receiving and a rushing touchdown, which rounded out his fantasy value points for around 19.6, which may sound like he's very touchdown dependent. Yes, absolutely for right now. This will not happen every single week with Braylon Allen. It might or it might not. I'm leaning towards it might not. But my point is that the workload for Breece Hall is the Jets offense right now. He's the focal point of this offense, and that's how they get the offense going. Now, Allen got some work with Breece Hall being healthy in a game that they were trying to win. Either way, if something happens to Breece Hall, Braylon Allen is the next guy up. And Allen, coming out of the draft out of Wisconsin, was a very hot prospect, especially in a running back class that was not very deep. So he's now at a point where if Breece Hall gets hurt, he gets a very big chunk of that workload and may get just the bell cow workload. But that's all relying on if Breece Hall gets hurt. Either way, it's worth having a handcuff on one of your spots in your bench. And Braylon Allen definitely should be one of those if you don't have one of those on your bench already. Now, can we all admit the tight end position in fantasy football has been incredibly weird to start the season? You get guys like Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews looking like not themselves. And even Dalton Kincaid, a guy who I was riding on, who I'm still high on, has not been looking like himself recently. Nonetheless, for a lot of us, and maybe for some of you, you need help at the tight end position. Here's what I got. For me, I think the top priority add at tight end this week has to be Mike Gesicki. Gesicki is finally back in a great offense, and it showed versus KC. 13 targets, 10 receptions, 109 yards, all worth 16 fantasy points. Gesicki is currently the tight end 6, and if his touchdown was ruled official, is actually taken away against New England in week 1, he would be the tight end 2 right now. And currently, he's sitting on waivers, just sitting there, not on your fantasy team until now. Look, before the season, I was super high in our fantasy football almanac, which go check out, link in bio, on the Bengals NFL preview, how much I like the Gesicki move for them. With that Tyler Boyd role kind of up in the air right now between Andre Ishivas and then Jermaine Burton, and now Mike Gesicki kind of operating in the middle of the field, I definitely think that he could be the third option behind T. Higgins when he's fully back in this offense. Now, a guy that I definitely think is in a deeper sort of realm at tight end, it's the Cowboys' Luke Shoemaker, who had a very solid day against the Saints. Now, we all know, like I mentioned earlier, Jake Ferguson is out, and he's kind of considered week to week. He avoided season-ending injury in week 1 with a knee sprain, but Schoonmaker has obviously been the plug-and-play guy for the Cowboys, and he had 6 targets for 6 receptions and 43 yards, or 10.3 fantasy points, which means he's kind of been the plug and play for Ferguson because Dak Prescott loves to throw to his tight ends. And I'll honestly be completely honest, when he had the ball, he looked really good. Like the guy they drafted out of Michigan to really have him be in the passing game and be their tight end 1. Now, when Ferguson obviously comes back, he's going to be the tight end 1, but we don't really know when Ferguson is going to be back. He's questionable this week, day to day, we don't really know. So if Jake Ferguson is out into week 3, I definitely think that Schoonmaker should be an add at tight end, and maybe you could even consider starting him. It's a tough matchup against Baltimore, but I definitely do think he could have upside and maybe catch a touchdown, catch another 43 yards, and have a 17-point fantasy point game, which is really rare for fantasy football tight ends right now. Either way, those are my waiver wire ads heading into week 3. Hopefully they can help you win your matchup or help your depth. With that being said though, thank you for watching the full video. Make sure you subscribe, notifications on so you never miss an upload. I've been Josh, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.